I'm changing the brake pads on my 2010 Honda Accord Crosstour. Decided to make a short video because I couldn't find one to help me out on YouTube. Anyway, I haven't done any mechanical work on any car for a long time. You know, new cars these days, very little you have to do to them. It takes a long time before you have to do brake service, and you know, you could always find a good mechanic out in the street somewhere, or you can go to the dealership. I've been dealing with street mechanics in the past, you know, sometime 20 years ago or so. And then after they became reliable, I figured I'd pay the extra money and go to the dealer and, you know, make sure it gets done right by qualified technicians. Only thing now is I've moved to Florida, and I found that not only you can't trust a lot of mechanics out here, I'm sure you got some reputable ones, I'm not killing the whole state, but it's difficult to find ones that you can't go online and find dozens and dozens of complaints about. And what I find really remarkable is that I'm going online with dealerships and finding so many complaints in the service departments of them doing unnecessary work and just doing horrible work. Not just selling you stuff you don't need to keep themselves busy, but also doing a shitty job, a shoddy job of whatever they were doing. So I found a lot of these dealerships, they're hiring a lot of unqualified people also. They're just giving them 2-week training course or something. So unfortunately I have to get my hands dirty and do this myself. Now brakes, pads aren't really a very difficult job, it's just a matter of a couple of bolts. But of course you have to be very careful with them. I've researched this car and tried to get some points where I can put the jack, and oddly enough, once again, it's very little on this car you can find about anything. Everything is in reference to the Accord, since this is sort of a offshoot of the Accord itself. Anyway, I tried some points up front, and I found they weren't lifting the car high enough, and as well, the jack seemed to be slipping off of it. I have this floor jack with the little circle there, and it seemed to be sliding off. Now I know the pinch points are here for the jack, for jacking up the car usually, but that's where I wanted to put the floor stand, so I couldn't put it there. So I used the standard pinch points over here, and it's held up good. It has a little crimp where the jack actually went in. That's where I jacked it up originally, just so I can put the floor stands on. And then I put the jack back a little bit further there just as a redundancy. And then I got some more redundancy, the tires under the car, because the last thing I want to do is get hurt here. Alright, on the other side I already took off the caliper. I'm going to show you from the other side the 2 screws first, since I have it turned out here because I was just about to get started on this one. And you have the top screw over here, and this side over here is 9/16, and then there's a little nut off for the rubber boot here that you got to hold back on. You don't want to rip the boot if it gets stuck there, and that's 3/4. So I use standard combination wrench, 9/16 and a 3/4, and I just sprayed a little W2 on there first, of course, to get it, make sure it's nice and loose. This car, as you know, is 5 years old, so I didn't expect too much trouble with it. Remarkably enough, I'll have to tell you that here it is 5 years old. I heard a slight squeak. That's why I thought maybe the wear indicators are actually touching the rotor and it's time to do this. When I actually pulled off this tire and did this, I found that it's just unbelievable how much brake I still have left there. And looked at the wear indicator here. And this one, at least, it's still quite a bit left here. Not bad for 5 years of driving. Now, I'm not really rough on a car driving. I was the first year, because my last year before I retired. And then after I moved to Florida a year, so it's like 2.5 years of very mild driving. I think I got 30,000 miles on the car anyway, 5 years old, so I'm not exactly abusing the hell out of it, but 5 years without the brake change and still it doesn't look like it's that bad. It's not bad at all. Sorry to run around in circles here, but One thing I did also, people were giving you all sorts of advice about how to either put this caliper down onto a stand or something, or some people lodge it up in the wheel well, whatever they want to do. But after I took these pads out, what I did was just put it back and put the top bolt back in. That way I could turn the tire, turn the wheel so I could check out the other side or do the other side and not worry about this falling off the top or putting stress on the hose. I'm taking another risk here because UPS is set to deliver my brake pads. I ordered them through Bernardi Honda parts, and I mean, it's just an excellent company. I highly recommend them, and they've done me good. I bought just about everything from them, from the side body moldings, mud flaps, the roof rack, even the internal lighting system, floor lighting inside the car. But I've ordered piles and piles of stuff. Even these chrome-plated center molds, pillar posts, should I say. Everything through Bernardi Honda parts, and they're just an excellent company. I ordered them just a couple of days ago, and they're set to be delivered today by UPS. My UPS driver usually gets here pretty early, 9:30. So I said, what the hell, let me just take this apart, get it set, maybe I can just toss them back in. I've also ordered the rears. I think I'm just put all four of them in, at the same time. The rears don't wear as quick as the fronts because that's where the braking power's in the front. But I figured I'd just start fresh instead of having to wait another year and a half and then do the rears again since I'm on it. Okay, I think that's about it. Okay, there's another thing I didn't mention is you can see from the back of this pad that they're actually dual pistons in these particular calipers for the 2010 Honda Accord Crosstour. Just open this up, take a peek. You'll see there's two pistons inside there. And what I used to actually push those pistons back in is a very small piece of wood, 1/2-inch ply, a little chunk, and a standard quick grip Irwin clamps. And that's more than enough. You don't need to be spinning a heavy C-clamp in there or anything like that. Very soft. It's against the wood also. It won't do any damage to the metal. Worked out perfectly. Started work on the rear pads of the Honda 2010 Crosstour, and right away the first thing I seen as I removed the caliper is that unlike the front, which I used the 11/16 and the 11/16 I think and a 9/16 I used. Let's see, where is it? Yes, 11/16 and a 9/16 I used to take the nuts off the caliper for the front of these brakes. They didn't fit the rear. When I went to the rear, I realized that quickly that it had to be metric. So for the bolt in the back, I ended up using a 12 millimeter, which fits perfectly. And I don't have any metric combination wrenches. So I used which one did I use? It wasn't 11/16, it was 3/4 in the front. I just pulled out this 11/16. So anyway, the front was 9/16 and 3/4. So in the rear, it was metric, like I said, so I used a 12 millimeter for the bolt. And to hold back the nut on the boot, if you can see it there, I don't have a 5/8, so I used my 11/16, which had a little bit of play inside of it. So I think you can use a 5/8 open end on the nut on the boot, or whatever corresponding metric box wrench if you have that, to open that up. Another thing is when I started to take off the pad, not only there's a shim in there between the caliper and the brake pads, but the rear section of pads that go into the caliper actually get pushed in with the spring here. This actually springs and locks into the caliper itself. So to get this out, I can't just pull it out. It ends up hitting the back of the caliper. First, I'll have to compress it in so I can push the caliper back far enough, flush, just to get this rear section of the brake pad out. The front section, or the outer section, is standard pad here. Doesn't have anything specific or special to it. So, the only thing I see here, other than the metric sizing here, is that I had to actually let this hang. The cable's so short, but I was very careful to let it hang and not just drop it. There's nowhere else I could put it. Not enough hose there for me to put it up top somewhere. Since I'm ready to put the pads in right away, I'm not going to just hook the top nut back in like I did in the front. Let's see how this goes. So what I did was I used my trusty quick clamp. I don't know if I get this to focus here. My trusty Earn quick clamp, and I compressed that caliper back in with the rear section of the pad still in it. Now I should be able to pull out that section and get the spring piece out that's actually shoved inside of the pad, inside of the caliper piston. A couple of other observations about the rear brake is that, contrary to my belief, the rear seem to have worn much more than the fronts. They seem to be very, very close. The fronts look like I could have left them in for quite a while, and the rear was run. Now I don't know if that's just a standard thing. I don't know if it's because I used my emergency brake. Well, that can't be an emergency brake. That's when the car's not running, so it's not like it's the wheels spinning and eating anything off the pad. But I didn't expect the rear to be much more worn than the front. So I'm glad I did decide to do both of them at the same time. Another thing about that spring that's in this caliper here, in the back of the caliper. If it pops out, you got to be careful to see how it is in the back. But these two little tabs on the outside actually come through and protrude and come to the outside of the caliper. On the other one, I didn't know. I was trying to get it back in, and I was actually trying to push the tab so it'll stay inside. But of course, I'm smart enough to know that I should go check the other wheel that I didn't take out yet before I start reconfiguring the car myself. Anyway, so if it comes out, those tabs have to be on the outside, and that spring does make it a bit difficult getting in that rear brake with these protruding spring-like things that actually go into the caliper piston. So be prepared to have a little more work just trying to squeeze that in there straight and properly around that spring.